Since we've been gone, the one topic that I've missed talking about is Lemurians. Let's get into it.
Yeah, so I have to provide... Let's go back literally more than 100 years ago. I think more than 100 years ago. Lemurians are this big legend of Mount Shasta. People believe that this ancient civilization lives in Mount Shasta in the City of Gold, and this has been a long discussed topic on this podcast, on our website. There's all sorts of, people who live in Mount Shasta that believe in this stuff and like this stuff. So back in 1904, British prospector J.C. Brown claimed that he found an underground city 11 miles deep in Mount Shasta, full of gold, shields, and mummies, some of which were 10 feet tall. So he told this to everyone. Everyone went nuts, right? They compiled this 80-person team to follow him down the hole into the city and go check it out. The day that everyone got together, J.C. Brown did not show up. He was never seen again. Fast forward to, I think 2021, maybe? Wait, let me look at this. I want to get this right. 2022, a man named Lowell Johnson came out and said, I visited the city of Telos in Mount Shasta. He talks about how he went up on a hike, how he was greeted by...
Alexander was his Lemurian. Alex
was the name of the Lemurian, brought him into the city, showed him all these different levels. There's hydroponic levels, there's living levels, City of Gold, there's like a big pyramid in the middle, all this great stuff. If you haven't heard this, go back on our YouTube page and check it out. We go deep in it, and I think it has a decent amount of views. I have talked to Lowell a couple times. After he saw the clip of the podcast, he wanted to come on the podcast. We also covered it on our website, which actually got many, many page views. And I decided not to have him on the podcast. We said this in the original video. We're not making fun of him. We're not saying that it didn't happen. Everyone can believe.
I'm more of a skeptic.
Yeah, I'm a skeptic for sure. I like the story. I like the idea of it. It's fun. So I received an email, and I actually receive a lot of Lemurian emails because our articles on Lemuria get read quite a bit on our website. A lot of them are pretty wild, and I usually don't, look at them much. But I did get this email about Lowell Johnson in particular that I thought we'd need to talk about. Lowell Johnson is probably going to see this. I'm sorry, Lowell, but, we just speak the truth on this podcast, and we're not going to ignore this. So the subject line was Lowell Johnson, what everyone needs to know. It came from Chris Hancock in Franklin, Tennessee. And I'll just read some of this. It's kind of a long email. Hi, my name is Chris Hancock. I'm 54 years old, licensed psychotherapist in Tennessee. I came across a mention of Active NorCal podcast in Lowell's atrocious and fallacious book, The Example. First and foremost, I had no idea that Lowell put a mention of our podcast in his book. That's interesting.
We got to find that quote, what he wrote about us.
And, part of me thinks that he's using this podcast to validate his story. We just like these stories. I mean, we're not reporting on we just like talking about this stuff. So that was interesting that he talked about a podcast in his book. Anyway, Chris Hancock goes on. Then I remember coming across your podcast episode and your colleague, you and your colleague discussing Lowell and his Telos story. Some time back. It seems many, including me for a time, have been captivated by Lowell and his Telos story. I've been to Mount Shasta twice and have connected in meditation he goes into some stuff that I don't even know. So as a result, direct of my experience, I'm a believer in the myth surrounding Telos, Lemuria, etc. The reason I'm writing you is quite sad and could be a difficult pill to swallow. At least it was for me. to the tune of $4,500 Lowell Johnson scammed me out of that likely I'll never see again. I trusted but didn't verify. In any case, truth and integrity must be paramount. I'm sure you'd agree. So he goes on to saying that Lowell scheduled this 4 to 5 day inclusive immersive retreat on Mount Shasta. And this guy was into it. You know, he wanted to go.
Well,
So-
he probably, do you think, excuse me, Lowell reached out to him to be part of it as somebody who was actually a participant or somebody that would be
A participant.
adding to the...
No, he would be a participant in this, you know, immersive retreat. You know, these people they want to go on Mount Shasta with the guy who went inside, right? And not only, I mean, again, go back and watch our old video. Lowell talks about he met with this whole, he was the chosen one to bring Telos and humans together.
Sure.
You know? So this guy sent Lowell $4,500, and you know, he bought a plane ticket, all this stuff, and then Lowell canceled the event last minute, saying his brother had a stroke, and promised to refund his $4,500.
Now, this is the second time he canceled this, according to this email.
Yes,
So
yeah.
last minute for the second time
Yeah.
he canceled it, in fact.
He kept saying he was going to refund him. He kept providing excuses why he didn't, and then he just never refunded him. So this guy goes on. As it turns out, as anyone can find online through public records, blah, 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 Lowell Edward Johnson Jr., a.k.a. Starbuck, that's his Instagram name, is in fact a lifelong serial thief, conman, and grifter. One with a prior criminal record, a felony in the 70s for which he did 3 years in jail, a string of failed businesses, multiple unpaid lawsuits, civil judgments, liens, evictions, you name it, behind him.
Allegedly, we're reading.
Yeah, this
from
is
the
what
email.
he's saying. We're not
alleging this.
Yes, yeah. Well, this is what he's alleging. We're
Right.
not even alleging this. He goes on to say he's hurt a lot of people. We've personally spoken to several victims of his crime, and they all say they've been scammed, robbed, conned, etc. Long of the short, he found evidence that Lowell never actually booked anything that he said he was going to for this retreat, which is, in his words, intent to fraud, blah, blah, blah. So he said, I'm alerting anyone, really, that's come across him that he is a scam artist. So I go back to, and I'll let you speak on this in a second because I'm sure you have a million thoughts. You're just now hearing this for the first time. I go back to J.C. Brown in 1904, 1906,
1904.
that vanished without a trace, right? Is this just a long line of people strumming up this Lemuria legend by writing books, by doing, media, all this different stuff to make a buck and then bounce? That is what I'm seeing this as. But what's your thoughts?
Absolutely. So you kind of, in the outline of this podcast, you wrote, is the guy who said he visited Lemurians in Mount Shasta full of shit? And the answer is yes.
Well,
I think Lowell is full of shit. Now, I always have.
you said that in the first.
I
Yeah,
always
that's true.
have. I don't believe in Lemurians. I love having conversation. Somebody very close to me in my life does believe in Lemurians, and it is one of my favorite things to talk with her about because we couldn't be further on the side of she believes that I do not. I think that it started in 1904 with a guy that's like, I'm going to make a quick buck. All of these people that he was going to bring up to show this, I'm sure he gained financially
Yes.
from that, right? There is no record of that, but I can almost assure you this man gained and then disappeared. He literally ghosted. They didn't have that term back then, but they do now. Now, this isn't necessarily a ghost situation, and he does give Lowell gives that his brother had a stroke or what have you, but Either way, he never paid back that $4,500. If it was me, if it was $4,500, I probably would do exactly what this guy did.
Yep.
Copy and paste an email to every Northern California media outlet that you could find on the internet. So I'm on his side. What's his name? Chris Hancock.
Yeah.
Chris Hancock, I'm on your side. I believe you, although there is no evidence. Allegedly, this guy stole $4,500 from you. And if it were me in your situation, I'd do the exact same thing.
Yeah. From all the, from comment section stuff to the emails I get to the DMs I get about this Lemuria stuff, it's mostly people talking about, it's true. I know it's true. I had this experience, all that, it's this is the first time I've had someone, not with proof that it's not true, but saying, hey, I at least know one of the leaders of, pushing the message further is full of shit. So, take that what you will. But you go to the funky stores in Mount Shasta, which I love.
Listen, I love all of the spirituality of Mount Shasta. Do I think that the Mount Shasta as a mountain has spiritual entities to it? I absolutely do. Do I believe there's a Lemurian city 11 miles under it that has this magical powers? Without a question, I do not. I do not believe that.
And we've met plenty of people who talk about, the power of Mount Shasta and being able to meditate there and connect with the mountain and nature. And there is something real to that, I think. Probably does not come in the form of a city under the mountain. But back to these funky little stores that I love in Mount Shasta. They all have these Lemurian books in them, right? So people are making money off this. If you're selling books on this stuff, people are making money off this.
We're getting page views.
We are actively making money. I spoke at a conference and I said, this article that I wrote 5 years ago has probably made me $10,000, just off ads and podcasts and YouTube and everything.
And honestly, and we haven't talked about this, and I don't even know if we should, we've been approached to do a documentary about Lemurians in Mount Shasta. So, this is not a small topic, and people are clearly making money with this topic.
Yeah, so that's a good point. Full disclosure, we have made money off this, but I think we've made money off trying to be as real as possible about it. If not, I'm sort of, I just like the story. I think it'd be fun. I don't necessarily believe it's true. I definitely don't believe it's true. But I just think it's a fun story. But yeah, so no shocker that the guy who does all this stuff is reportedly a grifter. And, I'm sure we'll hear from him about it, whatever. I also... I follow him on Instagram. He shares all these AI images of what Lemuria looks like, and it's kind of it's fun, but he's doing something to make money off it, right? No one posts all this stuff for the fun of it, right?
I agree. Now, Lowell probably has an opinion that's different than this gentleman, and he's probably going to want to give us his take on it. And I don't think we necessarily need to interview him on the podcast, but if Lowell, if you want to hit us up in the DMs, if you want to email us, give us your side, we'll read it just like we read his. We're not saying everything that this guy's saying is true. It sounds kind of legit. And you kind of put out almost salacious type story. And so we would like to hear your side. So Lowell, if you're watching this, hearing this
in written form,
written form. We don't want to interview. Listen, if you send us an email and what you say in it sounds like something that we would want to interview and put you on the podcast, maybe we will. I'm not saying we won't. We emphatically will not. But let's start with an email.
I'm not in the business of platforming grifters, but if
alleged grifters,
yeah, we're being real safe.
Hey,
here. Look. I did want to platform this guy who clearly is upset and to me has no reason to make up this story. He sent it. He's just I think he's trying to get a platform to say that he's a grifter. So,
and he doesn't want this to happen to other people again. He says that in his message. It happened to me. I just don't want it to happen again. So whatever I can do to prevent that, I'd like to do.
Yeah. So in terms of famous, well, I don't know about famous, but the people who talked about claim to see telos, 2 out of 2 are full of shit.
Well, yeah. I mean, one
Right?
disappeared.
One disappeared. He might have just gone into
Somebody could have
Telos.
murdered him because Telos could have come in and, they could have sent some
Lemurians might
Lemurians
have got him.
to
Yeah, that's
assassinate
true.
him, So he's probably full. Listen, if you have experienced a Lemur, we should have like a 1-800 number. If you have experienced Lemurians in the Mount Shasta area, please contact the Active NorCal podcast, otherwise known as Talking NorCal.